Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and we are live at 83weeks.com just moments after Survivor Series 2024. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Eric Bischoff. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Coming down off a great Thanksgiving day, and the food hangover's gone. So I was looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint.
It is a Thanksgiving tradition. Of course, it used to be on Thanksgiving night. Now it's just Thanksgiving weekend. Survivor Series 2024 in the books. You know, last year, Eric, they set the internet on fire with CM Punk returning not only to WWE but Chicago. Tonight, we were in Canada, and Punk found himself in the main event. What overall? What'd you think of the show? And we want to hear from you guys. Tell us what you thought. Was this one of the better pay-per-views that WWE has done? Were you disappointed? Is it a thumbs up? Is it a thumbs down? Is it a thumbs in the middle? And Eric, I guess I'll ask you first. What'd you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle?
I'm giving this one in the middle. It was a solid show from my perspective. Again, folks, anybody that's been listening to me for the last 6 years with you, Conrad, knows this kind of a match, these gimmick matches per se, are just not my thing. And we'll talk about why. And this is a good opportunity to do that. But for what understanding what it was, and understanding there's a large segment of the audience that enjoys this. It's an annual thing. It's a tentpole event. And things occur during these types of events that generally have implications. And we're creeping up on WrestleMania already. We heard some of that in commentary. They're already planting seeds. So I think it was really solid. I didn't see anything I really didn't like, save the first match, which we'll talk about. But everything else I thought was like a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. Nothing was bad, but nothing made me say, oh man, was that awesome, or really excited that I saw it. Everything else was just pretty good.
No, I kind of tend to agree. I thought the show was a thumbs up, but just barely. I mean, it checked all the boxes for what I expected. I'm not a big Survivor Series super fan. I love the Royal Rumble concept, but I just don't absolutely love this one. I am excited that they brought back War Games. I like that they include a pinfall now. It's no longer just submission. They have made some tweaks to the War Game format. What did you think about that from the way you guys used to do it and the style cage you used, Eric, to what you saw WWE do tonight?
I like the style of cage they're using now. It's easier to see. It's easier to shoot. Therefore, it's easier to see at home. I like that. Again, for me, just because of what I like, if I was reformatting War Games, I would be looking at 2 minutes or 3 minutes for those rounds. It's just too long. They're too slow. There's no emotional roller coaster going on during any of that time. I wasn't really engaged in anything. I felt like, all right, I'll just sit here and watch this until the good stuff happens, at the very end. And that keeps me out of it. I think those segments, especially the women's match, they're just too long to keep the viewer's attention.
Well, we hope we're keeping you guys' attention. We are live, and if you've got a question for Eric, it's easy to ask. Samantha is with us here live, and she wants to know, Eric, what'd you guys think of the crowd? It seemed really quiet to us. Yeah, I mean, internationally, we have seen hotter crowds. I know that this isn't that international. It's just Canada, but it didn't seem like they had the same fervor for the WWE product tonight. What say you?
That's really one of the first things I noticed. Just typically in Canada, especially now that there may be a big difference. I didn't work in Vancouver, maybe once while I was with WWE, maybe. So I'm really not as familiar with the Western Canadian crowd. Eastern Canada, Toronto, Montreal in particular, the crowd is hot. The minute you walk through the curtain, they're on fire. And this was the opposite of that. Maybe it's a West Coast, East Coast thing in Canada. Don't know, not plugged in. But definitely felt like talent had to work a lot harder to get the audience engaged. I don't know if it was because of the format, because it started out so slow and nobody just really got into their rhythm. But it was a little bit. It wasn't quite like pulling teeth, but it was like cleaning teeth, I think.
Yeah, well said. I love that analogy. I've never heard that one before, but yeah, the crowd was just to use a basketball term, they weren't the sixth man. That's not really who you were hoping for. And maybe it's some of the creative. I saw some criticism online tonight of some of the creative, but it almost feels unanimous in our live group chat here at 83weeks.com, which, by the way, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell. You don't want to miss us the next time we're live. But everybody seems to think that we're all in agreement. The crowd was kind of dead tonight. Josh Henney says, I did notice they turned down the crowd sound and turned up commentary during the FU solo chants. Did you notice that, Eric? And do you think that that'll become more of a thing on Netflix? I know that, they do have to give on Peacock, I guess all programming, some sort of a rating. But from what we've understood, there will be some WWE programming that has maybe a TVMA again. Do you think we might actually start seeing the F word be audible on WWE programming once it goes to Netflix?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any basis to speculate. I know what I would like to see. I don't want to see that. And you've been around me. I mean, I talk like a truck driver or worse. So it's not like it offends me personally, but I just think I just don't like what it does to the genre. When you're at the level that WWE is playing at, and as hard as they've worked to get there, I would like to see it remain pretty advertiser friendly and stay away from it, because it doesn't add anything. It doesn't make the show better. It gives it a little bit of grit and makes you feel like you're there live, right? Because you don't hear that stuff, typically in taped product. But I just think overall it damages the brand.
I can't disagree. It does feel like they're really popular with young adults and kids right now. And if I had a son or a daughter that I was thinking about taking to a show and they were throwing that around all the time, I think her mom might say, maybe we don't let her listen to that or watch that tonight. So, yeah, I do think it would only hurt revenues. It couldn't possibly help, I don't think. Andrew L is with us, and he wants to know, Eric, why didn't Roman grab the Ulafala to reclaim his right as tribal chief? You think they're just saving that for down the road?
Possibly. That's one thing. I mean, there's several things, by the way, I've criticized this, and we'll probably do more so as we go. I just got to be honest. I wonder if that affects my travel on Monday. I'm supposed to fly to Orlando to be in NXT. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a phone call at the end of this. I think the primary story that I'm taking away is Roman and Punk. I mean, this whole thing was, from my perspective, looking at it in terms of, okay, as a producer, what do I want to accomplish in this pay? What's the number one thing I want to accomplish in this pay-per-view? Aside from having great matches and entertaining the audience, giving everybody their money's worth, for my plans as a producer, what I want to happen, I want everybody to realize that the story is between Roman and Punk, at least for now. So I'm interested to see how that develops, but the rest of it, I don't know. I don't know if any thought went into it, to be honest with you.
Seems like most folks agree with us here that the formatting for the War Games match just moves a little slower. We're going to start at the beginning. I have to admit, this is football weekend if you're a college football fan, and it's the big rivalry week. So it overlapped the Alabama-Auburn game, and I guess I didn't realize. I guess there's maybe a UFC tonight, so they needed the WWE program to end a little early, so it started earlier. So I completely missed the women's War Games match, but Eric, I know you had a chance to see it. What'd you think?
It was hard. It was hard for me to watch. Again, nothing at all to do with the talent. It's just that format is so slow and so plotting and so spot reliant. All the War Games matches were like that. They're so spot reliant. That's all you're really getting. And it's, again, for me, that's not my kind of match. Bringing, garbage cans and shit into the ring. It's just, I've never liked it. I never will like it. But in the women in particular, and maybe it was because of the crowd, or maybe the crowd was kind of iffy because of the first match. I don't know. But until we got about midway through that match, it was tough for me to pay attention to. I just kept getting distracted. Now, once we hit about the halfway mark, a little more than halfway mark, if I remember right, then it started picking up. And the last third of the match, last half of the match, I thought was pretty tight and pretty fun to watch. Wasn't a big fan of the garbage can spot. It just, first of all, the cameraman missed it. Boy, they made a bad live cut. Just as she was going, the camera cut and was looking for it. You just missed one of the best parts of it, in my opinion. But save that little glitch. Like I said, it got pretty decent. It was fun to watch at the end. It's just the first part of it was tough.
I saw a lot of criticism for that first match. I even saw some clips of some chair shots that, well, Hulk Hogan maybe threw better chair shots, and that's not the compliment. Maybe you hope it is. I didn't see a chance to see it, so I can't really say much about it, but I am glad that they sort of bookended the War Games matches. Like, just from a formatting standpoint, Eric, it takes a minute to get the cage down and to get it set up, and you don't want those to go back to back because, well, it would just not work as well as far as the enjoyment for the crowd. So starting with the ladies, finishing with the men's War Games, I think they nailed that part, right?
No, I don't think you have any choice. I mean, you pointed out a really important thing. You don't want them back to back. And, most people know why, but in case you don't, or you're curious, it's a special match. It's a big thing, and it's the focus. And if you have two of them, one right after another, if you're following the first one, they've kind of seen so much of it already that it's even harder to get the audience engaged. But they're forced to do that because of the format and because they want to have a women's War Games and a men's War Games. But yeah, it was, like I said, I don't want to be redundant. It was a little slow.
Nonsense McGee says the women individually are great athletes, but you could tell they weren't used to using weapons. Nia was stopping halfway through each whack of the chair. Haha. Yeah, I mean, listen, there haven't been as many women's matches with weapons, and I don't fault them for trying to be cautious, but it does make me wish, if we're going to be cautious, maybe just don't use the weapons. What say you?
I mean, I'm so with you on that. You're so right, Conrad. If you're not really good with a chair, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to risk. If you're not that good, that means you don't have that much control. And if you don't have that much control, now you're at risk of hurting somebody, right? Or you're going to make it look horrible. I mean, there's very little in between. That's just luck. Whatever's in between pretty awful and stitches is just luck if you're not good with it. So then don't do it. There's certain things that people continually do because they feel like it's part of the requirement and everybody else does it, but some people do it well, some people don't. If you're not good with a chair, leave it alone, find something else, or don't use anything. Novel thought.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer. Maybe that's lesson learned. I did think, for whatever it's worth, I enjoyed last year's ladies War Games match more than this year's. So we'll see what happens next year. Next up, though, we had a singles match. And this was one that I saw some people debating the finish about pretty heavily. LA Knight has lost his United States Championship to Shinsuke Nakamura, who's back with what Bruce Pritchard might call a fresh paint of coat. They went 9 minutes and 45 seconds, and Shinsuke is your new U.S. champion. I think this makes his third title reign, and I saw some people who weren't so happy with that on social media. I, for one, am a self-admitted Nakamura mark. I've never felt like they've really nailed him in WWE. I don't think they really captured what the magic he had was over in New Japan. And I did like when he challenged Cody Rhodes earlier this year, and they were allowing him to just do promos in Japanese and subtitling it. Like, this version of Nakamura, I want to give a chance to. Eric, you've seen it a few times. What did you think about the presentation tonight?
I thought the presentation was fine. It's kind of like, okay, he's back. He's got a little bit of a different vibe to him. I'm more excited about seeing where it goes than what I saw tonight, if that makes sense. And like you, I'm a big Nakamura fan. He's got something really special, aside from his abilities, athletic abilities. There's something else about him that's kind of special. And also, like you, I don't think it's been tapped yet. I know I'm not familiar with his New Japan work at all, so I can't say that or anything about that. But I've been around him. I've been backstage with him. And he's one of those people that have an aura that's pretty unique, but you've got to figure out how to make it work for television. And maybe this is it. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But I also got to tell you, I love LA Knight. I love his story, his real life story. I love what he's been through to get to where he is. I love the commitment, the discipline, the believing in yourself. There's so many things, and I don't even know him. I've never had a conversation with him, but just knowing of his journey to get to where he is, I want to see him keep going, and he has the ability to do it. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, man, I love him. Give me some knock, but I'm not sure I like it. We'll see where it goes.
Oh, what do you think is next for LA Knight? Do you think there's a chance we see him move up to the world title picture?
Well, that's what I was thinking when I was watching it. I thought, okay, there's got to be a reason for this, other than just positioning Nakamura. That's obviously a big reason for this, but there's got to be more to it than that, because LA Knight's just got too much momentum. We're not the only ones that, a lot of fans are feeling pretty, I don't know, man. I like LA Knight. I like them both, but I like LA Knight. So we'll see where it goes. Maybe this is a first step into Act 1 of his WrestleMania movie. We'll see.
Fans seem like they're 50-50 tonight as to whether or not this was the right time for LA Knight to drop the title. And there's even been some suggestions here in the comments live on YouTube. They wonder, do you think Nakamura might be a transitional champion? There's lots of rumor and innuendo that we may be seeing Pentagon debuting sometime soon in WWE. And if you do have a new star debuting, maybe you don't want to squash or take away the momentum from another established babyface if you think he's going to get a hero's welcome. I guess that could make sense. I mean, we've seen that before with, Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik and those sort of things. Do you think there's a chance that this is to set up a new debut, Eric?
Possibly. I'm not following the politics and the comings and goings and the backstage stuff that's going on every single day in the wrestling business. So I don't know when his arrival may be, or if it may be, but it certainly could be a transitional setup.
We got to talk about this next match because, man, it was a fun one. I saw people saying this may have been actually the match of the night. Braun Breaker, Sheamus, and Ludwig Kaiser. Man, Sheamus just loves having bangers on pay-per-view, and today was no exception. Braun Breaker was, man, I don't know. He may have had his best year of his wrestling career in 2024. They went 14 minutes and 25 seconds. Braun retains his Intercontinental Championship. I thought the crowd was with every false finish in this. I think just bell to bell, they couldn't have done much better here, Eric.
Yeah, there was a lot of intensity on a card where the the intensity was it reached a certain level and kind of maintained it throughout the show until the very end, obviously, with the exception of this match. And I think a lot of that has to do with, all three of them were phenomenal. Not suggesting anybody in that ring didn't do a phenomenal job, but there's something special about Braun Breaker, and he reminds me of that Tesla truck that just, I don't know what's it called, just the Tesla SUV,
the Cybertruck.
The Cybertruck. He reminds me of the Cybertruck because he, from 0 to 60, he can beat a Lamborghini, but he's just built like he could run through walls, but he's so fast. Everything he does is so fast and so crisp and so intense. And I think brings everybody else's game up because they got to keep up. And the end result is a pretty supercharged match. And it was fun to watch. Sheamus is one of the toughest people I've ever met. He is just tough. And I think he enjoys going out there. And some people like contact. I think I was one of those people. I used to like contact. But some people love contact. And Sheamus loves contact. So it was an intense match and it was fun to watch.
It was super fun to watch. I think that was probably the match of the night for me. And I really enjoyed Gunther's match. He was in there with Damian Priest. He picks up a win. We saw a little interference from Finn Balor to allow that opportunity. Gunther retains, though. And Swerve Daddy, who's with us here live, says Gunther needs strong baby faces to feud with. And also, when do you think The Rock will be back? Rumble. We'll save the Rock part for later, but I agree that we need strong baby faces for Gunther. What'd you think of his match with Damian Priest, and who would you be looking to next for Gunther?
I like Damian a lot. You know, when we first started doing it must have been about 4 or 5 pay-per-views ago. And Damian he was in an off night. It just wasn't a good match for him. And it was one of the first times that I had sat and watched an entire Damian Priest match. And I was totally unimpressed. Again, not bad, just not good, not great. I think there was a missed finish at the end of that particular match. It kind of bobbled things up a little bit too. But ever since then, every time I see him, he's just more and more impressive. Gunther, I thought, that's my kind of heel. That's my kind of match. It's my kind of psychology. Gunther makes me believe. It's not flashy. It just makes you believe. I like him. But you're right. You know, you need somebody to put him at risk. A lot of risk. He's got to be afraid of it. He's got to be afraid of that baby face. Gunther is the kind of heel that if and when it's appropriate and he can pull it off, he needs to start doubting himself. He needs to be in a situation where, as much of a heel as he is, he needs to start second guessing himself and revealing some vulnerability so that baby face can play off of that and the story can unfold because of that. But right now, he's just a tough, nasty heel. I'm there for it.
I loved it. I think Gunther is a great character, and I don't know if the big baby face they're looking for is LA Knight, but I could see that. LA Knight versus Gunther. Do you think that might be a Royal Rumble world title match, or maybe something for Saturday night's main event?
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly could be. There's no reason why it couldn't be. I just don't know if that's the best career path for everybody right now, creatively speaking.
Creatively, what did you think of the decision to exclude the world champion from this pay-per-view? We just went through an entire premium live event, no Cody Rhodes, no world title. I know that you did that occasionally in WCW, and you would take some criticism here, there, and yon. But if he really is your top star, was it odd to you that there was no presence, or do you think it may have actually taken away from what they were doing with Punk and Roman?
Oh, I think number one, it would obviously take it away because it would somehow have to overshadow or factor in. And if you didn't do either of those, then people would be just, what the fuck? So, yeah, no, I think it's smart for that reason. And more importantly than that, Cody's your world champion. Cody should feel special. It shouldn't be obligatory for your world champion to show up at every premium live event. No, I like it. I've said this you've heard me say it 100,000 times. Absence makes the heart grow fonder factor. You can stifle somebody's career by not exposing them enough, or you can stifle somebody's career by overexposing them. And I think keeping your world champion special for special matches and on special pay-per-views is judicious, if not brilliant.
I'm not arguing any of that, but I just want to play devil's advocate here for a minute. Let's say you live in the Vancouver area and your kids are big wrestling fans and they've got a big birthday and their favorite wrestler is Cody Rhodes. and you spring for these big tickets so they can go see their favorite wrestler, and now he's not there when he's been on every other pay-per-view. I get what you're saying from a pay-per-view standpoint. I don't even think from a positioning standpoint, if you were really world champion, you want to go on last. But in a show like this, where it's War Games, you know that's going on last. So maybe you do want to sit this one out if you're the talent. But are you worried about disappointing the live crowd, or do you try to make that up to them in a dark match, not for pay per view?
You mean with the world champion, in this case, Cody?
And yeah, I mean, I'm saying how many people bought a ticket to see Cody, assuming it's a WWE PLE, will know he'll be there, and now he's not. Now, it's no big deal for the adults, I'm sure, but I got to assume there's some upset little kids in that crowd tonight.
Well, I don't know. Was he advertised? If he wasn't advertised, was everybody else that was on the card advertised? Did people know that he wasn't going to be there? And if they did, because he wasn't advertised and because there was advertising that did showcase the people who were going to be on the pay-per-view, then yeah, you might have a small percentage of kids that are disappointed that he wasn't there. But you're never going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time, and you ultimately have to do what's best for your business long term. And if you have to make a decision like that, knowing that you're risking 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, kids that were disappointed because Cody wasn't there, that's unfortunate, but it's almost like the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it would have been silly for them to assume that he was going to be there since he's been at every other premium live event. Josh Henning is with us, and he wants to know, what are your thoughts on the induction or introduction of the band prior to the War Games match? They did it college football style. I thought it was great. Yeah, it did have a Monday Night Football feel. What'd you think of that, Eric?
I thought it was cool as hell. Again, just something different. Yeah, I thought it was awesome. It put a smile on my face, actually, because it's such a unique idea that it's actually kind of obvious. Like, I can't believe people didn't do that before. But somebody connected a couple dots and said, hey, what if we do this? And they did it, and it's awesome.
Greg Williams says, hey, Eric, huge fan from Michigan. What did you think of the undercard? Before we talk about the main event, scale of 1 to 10, Eric, what'd you give the undercard on this one?
I didn't watch the undercard.
Yes, you did. It's everything we just talked about.
Oh! I thought you were sorry. I thought you were referring to like pregame,
Yeah,
type stuff.
yeah.
Again, I thought it was all solid. As I said in the beginning of this, if I'm understanding the question, you're talking about everything sandwiched in between the War Games matches.
Yeah, not the main event, not the men's, not the last match. Everything
right.
before.
I thought, again, I'd give it all a 7. Maybe I'd probably bump the Breaker, Sheamus. What was that cat's name?
Ludwig Kaiser.
Ludwig Kaiser. The Germans get them all mixed up. My last name is Bischoff. I start hearing German names, I have flashbacks. I thought everything was good. Everything was solid. I'd give that match a little bit bigger of a bump, maybe an 8 on that one, but everything else was a solid 7. I didn't see anything that fell below it. And again, other than that match, I didn't see anything that really stood out and made me go, wow, that was pretty exceptional.
Michael Stutler is with us here live, and he says the women's War Game match should have just been a traditional Survivor Series match. The backstory did not support War Games. What do you think? And I got to think Michael's onto it. Like, the story of the Bloodline, that warrants a War Games. Do you think they would have caught some heat if the ladies just had a traditional Survivor Series match and they weren't given the War Games treatment? Is that what's at play here?
Yeah, that's what's at play. It's fucking stupid. I mean, that kind of stuff bothers me a little bit when you're catering to a small percentage of the audience that gets very vocal in social media and starts virtue signaling for wrestling in a way that's absurd. I mean, let's face it, there is some things that should be addressed and have been addressed in the past and will be in the future, but women didn't get a War Games match. Does it really freaking matter? Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, it's just common sense. These women get an opportunity to go out on the largest stage in the world and have a great match, whether it's a War Games match or a Survivor Series match or a straight match. Why does it matter what gimmick match it is? I think people take this stuff a little too far in their attempts to be light.
Christopher Williams wants to know, why are pinfalls in a War Games match? Dusty Rhodes created War Games to be submit or surrender. Obviously, he also had a top on the cage. There's been some changes. Do you think they're too far away from Dusty's vision? Should they call it something else, or do you think Dusty would have been cool with it?
No, I think Dusty would have been cool with it, because if there were no pinfalls allowed, if you think the pace of those matches were slow tonight, imagine if they were all submission attempts instead of pinfall attempts with near falls. Caca.
David Hernandez is with us, and he says, I thought the cordial reaction between CM Punk and Roman Reigns was exciting and unexpected. Do you think CM Punk will turn on Roman at some point? And lots of people are wanting to know, and we'll just go right to it. Thick Boy Freddy says, what do you think the favor from Paul to Punk is going to be? Of course, the main event, it's really all about that interesting three-way relationship, if you will, of Paul Heyman, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns. What do you think the favor is going to be? And do you assume, like we all do, it's going to be a match at some point, right, Eric?
I don't know. Is this fun though? And that's the great thing when you can do things in any form of entertainment, drama, speaking of drama, not comedy or action necessarily. But when you get the audience asking questions, that's when you got them. When they're making statements, that was a great match. I enjoyed that match. That was a great match. Okay. They may or may not come back next time. Probably will. But if they're busy doing something else, probably not. But if you get them to lean forward and ask each other, well, what do you think the favor was all about? You own them from a storytelling and an audience connection point of view. You own them because they're asking questions and not making statements. And that's the beauty of what they're doing with the Bloodline. It's just always just one question mark after another, which is why it keeps bearing fruit.
Swerve Daddy is with us, and he says the way they got Jacob out of the way without making him look weak, and how Roman used a low blow on him. When do you think he gets his first title? That is interesting. Like, he's been such almost a background character, a right-hand man, the enforcer character for Solo's Bloodline. Do you think they could start him on his singles journey? And when they do that, I mean, it feels like fans are going to just jump and jump to support him. Like, he needs to stay with his faction a little longer if he's heel, or can they do that, do you think, Eric? Because it feels like fans love him.
You just got to make, I mean, I don't know. I don't watch enough of the WWE product to be able to have a feel for that question. But I think ideally, right now, the fans want him. The fans are with him. When you get to the point where the fans want it so badly, they're almost demanding it. They're almost disappointed if they don't get it. Don't get to that point, but just before that, and that's the art, right? Trying to feel the momentum and measure the momentum as best you can. There's no science to it. It really is art, but you can track things and get a feel. But it's timing. The more they want it, the bigger the pop will be when they get it.
Ronnie Day is with us, and he says the reason Roman didn't take the Ulafala is because he didn't beat Solo clean, like how Solo beat Roman clean. The fact he swallowed his pride with Punk, and to see what the favor is with the wise man. I mean, that's where we left it. You saw the camera shot. It certainly felt like they were positioning for something else to happen after the match. I kind of felt like the way they kept shooting the entrance, someone was coming down. It didn't happen. Instead, we saw CM Punk come down the ring steps, hug Paul Heyman, and mention that favor again. And then we saw not as warm or interaction between Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. What do you make of that, Eric?
There was like a very gentle goodbye, you know, like when he put his hand up on his shoulder, up on his jaw, rested it there, and kind of looked at him and walked away. I looked at my wife. I said, "Oh, he's done." I don't know when, but yeah, that was pretty interesting. And that's the magic. I mean, we've already started wondering what Paul Heyman's up to. I mean, the part of the pregame show that I did see right at the very end, it was all about what the hell is Paul Heyman really up to? And they did a good job of creating that question, creating that mystery.
AOTV Productions has a question for you, maybe out of left field a little bit. It says, "Hey, Eric, how unlikely is the possibility that Dave Meltzer will be allowed at the WWE press conferences?"
I'd let him in. Every time that guy opens his mouth, he makes an ass of himself. So just let him in. Give him a mic. Hell, I'd bring him up on stage. Let him start taking some questions. I mean, I don't want to say give it up. Like, I'll still check in every once in a while and see what kind of silly shit he's saying. But he has lost so much credibility, is so far gone that I don't think anybody takes him seriously. I don't think anybody takes him serious enough to give a damn if he showed up or not.
AOTV Productions has another question here. This is pretty pointed. I don't know if you've heard this. "Hey, Eric, Jim Cornette has mentioned he's not a fan of Nia Jax." That's an understatement. "He thinks she's sloppy. He refers to her as the refrigerator. What did you think? What do you think of Nia Jax's work, her as a person, her performance tonight, and Jim Cornette's criticism, if you've had a chance to hear any of those?"
I haven't heard any of Jim's criticisms, but look, I think Nia Jax is the type of wrestler that should be wrestling a certain gimmick. She should work a certain gimmick. She's the female version of the Giant, the powerhouse, the immovable object. And the more she tries to expand on that, it doesn't do her any favors. She's got to have the right people to work with. I used to talk about Paul White the same way. It's great to have that big, insurmountable object as a character that can devastate opponents with sheer power, force, size, all that. But it's hard matching them up because you need to match them up with people that can work and make her look good with giving that kind of gimmick or that approach to her presentation. I don't see a lot of that happening. I see a lot of Nia Jax trying to work a style that doesn't suit her best. Work your strengths, hide your flaws. And that's what I'd like to see her do. As far as her, and by the way, that applies to everybody anyway, but in this case, I think maybe more so. I've only been around her a couple times, and what I've seen, just observing her and the way she reacts to other people and conducts herself, she's a sweet, sweet woman. Very humble and kind and pleasant. I mean, I've had very little interaction with her, but I've watched her, and she seems like a really wonderful person.
The show tonight is in the books. Of course, they're going to be looking at Saturday night's main event coming up. It's going to be here 2 weeks from tonight. The main event is Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens for the world title. If you were putting together that card based on what you've seen tonight, what sort of stories would you want to feature underneath Cody and Kevin Owens back on NBC for the first time in a long time?
Oh, I don't know, Conrad. I have to think about that. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but I think I want to take advantage of the opportunity to get LA Knight on his next journey, whatever that may be. If they have something set up with him, love to see that happen in a kind of high profile way where everybody's paying attention, which they will in this show. Beyond that, I don't know, man. I have to sit down and think about it for an hour.
Major's got a fun question for you. He says, "Hey, Eric, can you describe your reaction when fans started throwing trash in the ring during those NWA segments on Nitro It made everything feel so real. I couldn't imagine that happening in WWE.
It was a different time. It was awesome. It's like, I don't know if I could make an analogy. I've never played golf in my life. I think I went to a driving range once and spent $100, and I probably made contact with the golf ball 4 times in an hour. So I don't know what this feels like, but I can imagine that if you're a golfer and you hit your ball off the tee, there's probably a point when you've been golfing a lot. The minute you make contact with the ball, when you can feel it in the palms of your hands and your fingers as you hold the club, you actually know you hit a wonderful shot. Probably the same thing with a baseball bat, right? As soon as you make contact, you probably know. And I don't know. That's probably not a good example, but hopefully you get my point. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm watching backstage interviews here. It's kind of crazy.
Instagram a wrestling historian is with us here live, and he wants to know, what'd you think of your Survivor Series team in 2003?
This guy obviously doesn't know me. He's never listened to this show before. I don't know, man. I'd have to Google that to be able to respond to that one. But I mean, I'm sorry. I wish I could remember. And it was something that you remembered, which hopefully means it was pretty good. But I honestly, I can't recall.
Major is with us, and he says, I saw you're going to be on NXT this week. Yes. How about that, Eric? Going to be back on WWE TV this Tuesday. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's nice, to be able to get back out in front of a live crowd again and just collaborate a little bit and work with some people I haven't worked with before. So I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward as well to leaving Orlando and heading right to New York to be a part of MLW One Shot on Thursday night. So it's going to be a fun wrestling week.
Tickets are on sale now. Go to Queens this Thursday night and see Eric live at MLWNYC.com. It's this Thursday, December 5th in Queens on 33rd Street. You can watch it live on YouTube or pick up tickets and join Eric at the Melrose Ballroom by picking up your tickets at MLWNYC.com. David Dufett, probably said that wrong, says, why does War Games require chairs? It's sad, says this 54-year-old. I agree.
Don't forget the toilet lid.
Yeah.
Come on. It's just
and the toolbox. And the toolbox. And the tables.
You know what they should do? I'm going to throw a suggestion out there in the universe, and hopefully somebody will pick up on it down the road. Just let them come to the ring with whatever freaking weapon they want, so they don't have to look under the ring for it. It just looks silly. It's just weird. Just say, okay, we all know you're going to use weapons. You sons of bitches pull that shit out from out of the ring all the time. We know it's going to happen. So just pick out your weapon and bring it with you. Get it over with. Well, you're not down on your hands and knees looking into the ring like you lost, an earbud. What the fuck? Just come out with it.
Trick of Cheese wants to know, Eric, who would play a better heel, Lori or Conrad?
Now, Conrad, you got that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because, deep down inside, I know you've had your moments, but you're one of those, you're like a ninja heel. You'd be that heel that nobody was sure was a heel until it was too late. Because once you healed on them, there's nothing they can do about it. It's like you'd be a calculating heel. Yeah.
I feel like Mrs. B, who is a life coach and motivational speaker, that's like casting Ricky Steamboat to play a heel.
Yeah, she doesn't have it. She couldn't even find it.
Yeah.
You have to have a lityour bit of it in you. It has to be there. You can't fake 100% of anything unless you study at Juilliard for half your life. So no, she couldn't find it, but I think I know you could.
Oh yeah, I can do it. Ask a bum. He's got a serious question here, Eric. This is real deal stuff here. Eric, is it true that you tried to set up a world title match between Ed Leslie and Glacier? Rumor has it you were adamant about this. Just kidding.
Thank you. I'm glad you kidding thing came in at the end.
Vlad says, Eric, do you think the Bloodline will reach the NWO as an all-time great faction, or do you think they're already there? No, there's no chance. Come on now.
No, they blew by the NWO as a storyline.
Okay.
They blew by the NWO 2 years ago. It's the best story that's ever been written and produced for professional wrestling in any of our lifetimes. It may not have the impact that the NWO did. 25 years from now, are people going to be wearing, Bloodline t-shirts at wrestling events like they are NWO shirts? So I don't think it'll have the impact of the NWO, and that's more about timing than anything. But I think as a storyline, it's Bloodline blew past NWO a long time ago.
Mad Dad wants to know, give me your War Games teams, Conrad and Eric. I mean, if you had to create an all-time War Games team, Eric, give me 5 names on your War Games team. This is the Eric Bischoff Dream Team for a Survivor Series War Games mashup. Who are your 5 guys, Eric?
Living or dead?
Yep. Fantasyland.
Eddie Guerrero.
Okay.
Brock Lesnar.
All right.
Randy Orton.
Okay.
What do I need? China.
Oh.
I got one more, right?
Yep.
Stone Cold.
Oh, man. I was going to go with everybody you fired on my side, but you stole my thunder. So now I'm stuck with Honky Tonk Man. So that's not the best team. Ask a Bum wants to know, are you going to be an NXT regular? Eric, I know that your MLW appearance is called Eric Bischoff's One Shot. Is this a one shot with NXT, or are you going to be a regular in Orlando?
You can bet on this being a guest, a cameo. And look, this is the first time I've been on a WWE show in about 2 years. So at this rate, it'll be 2027 before I'm probably back again. No, it's just a one, I'm going to be there, and in all honesty, working on some other things for WWE that are being filmed. And I think it was just more than anything convenient. And it was opportunistic. I'm going to be there anyway, filming something else. And it's, the day after NXT. So it just kind of made sense. It's efficient. But it's a one-time.
Eric, you and I haven't talked about it, but a friend of ours, and he is a friend of ours, hit me up this week and said, hey, did WWE book Eric to F with MLW? And I'm like, no, that's the stupidest thing. Why would you say that? And then I go, oh, wait, that's on Thursday and NXT is on Tuesday. And then maybe they don't love the idea that they just wrote those jokers a check for $20 million less than a year ago. Have you thought of that? What do you think of that conspiracy theory?
No, because I was on the receiving end of the calls. They both came in at the same time. That's silly. I mean, no. And anybody thinking like that has too much time on their hands and should be applying that imagination and creativity to something beneficial, because that's not even close.
Well, what else is not even close is we asked our fans here at 83weeks.com and everybody watching live, has the Bloodline passed the NWO? And 60% say no. The NWO is going to leave an indelible mark on professional wrestling forever and ever. And I do think one of the major separating factors, as silly as this is Eric, you mentioned it a moment ago, they don't have that iconic T-shirt. They don't have a Hulkamania T-shirt. They don't have an Austin 316 T-shirt. They don't even have a DX T-shirt, much less an NWO shirt. I don't see Bloodline shirts everywhere when I'm in public. That's the big difference, right?
I think maybe that's one. Maybe. I don't know. But and this is going to be hard for me to talk about because I'm going to be putting myself over, and it's not me; it was everybody involved, to be honest. But the NWO got there first. We were Nitro. We were the first one to do live TV every week. We were the first ones to shift from the teen and preteen numbers to the 18 to 49-year-old target. WWE didn't want anything to do with that audience. I did. And because we were first, and because and there were factions before, for crying out loud, the Four Horsemen of WCW, and it's not like there wasn't factions before either, but it was the first time that felt real. It was the first time that people weren't sure if this really was WWE invading WCW. They got there on their own. I allowed them to think that. I didn't push them in that direction, but I didn't dissuade them from thinking that. It was a very fine line, but it felt fucking real, which is why the Monday Night Wars kicked off and raised the profile of professional wrestling in general for both companies. That same condition, that same situation doesn't exist today. So no matter how good that storyline is for the Bloodline, or it continues to be, is a better way to say it, it won't have the impact because it didn't get there first, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and we appreciate you guys getting here first. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell. Eric and I are going to be going live next week. He's got a huge week in front of him. You heard it here. He's going to be in Orlando for NXT, and then he's going to be in Queens for MLW. Now, those shows are on Tuesday night and Thursday night. When will you return home, Eric?
I think I get home Friday night, but I'm glad you brought that up. I have been very, I've had a really hard time posting my exclusive content for 83 weeks, mostly because of scheduling and other things that are going on in my life, but partly because I don't really have much interesting to say lately. So, and I'm tired of beating up on certain wrestling promotions and the people that run them. But I'm going to do like a video diary every day. Now, I'm leaving Monday morning at 8 a.m. They're actually sending a limo to pick me up. I can't wait to see what my neighbors think. I don't think there's ever been a limo up here where I live. In fact, I know there hasn't. So, yeah, and from the time I leave to the time I head home, I'm going to check in at least every day in the mornings and just kind of bring up to speed what's going on.
I can't wait. Hit the subscribe button, 83weeks.com. When Eric gets home, we're going to go live, and we're going to be taking your questions here. So you don't want to miss your opportunity to be live and interface with Eric and ask questions. We're going to wrap this up, but first we need to hit a few more. AOTV Productions says, hey, Eric, some people are worried about WWE going live on Netflix and having buffering issues like Tyson Paul did. What do you think? Eric, I think if 70 million people try to watch Monday Night Raw live, then everyone will high-five the greatest buffering moment in the history of pro wrestling, right?
Yeah, that's like, that's a happy problem to have. Look, I have no reason to have any kind of an expert opinion on this, but given the sophistication of WWE and the production and the resources at their fingertips, same with Netflix, I'm pretty sure that whatever buffering issues may have resulted after the Paul fight, I'm sure they're being addressed, and I would have 100% confidence we're not going to see that happen.
AOTV Productions says, hey guys, what do you think of the possibility of 2025 Cena versus Punk in Chicago for the last time? I think it's got to happen, right? I mean, Eric, you got to do that. When you take Cena to Chicago, what else do you do?
That idea books itself and prints its own money.
Yeah.
You just have to sit back and take it.
KV Talks Wrestling says, how would an NWO brand have worked? How are you planning on building a show around a heel stable? I know the brand got super hot, Eric, where maybe we felt like it's viable from an advertising standpoint. But as far as structuring and formatting a show, that would have been pretty challenging, right?
Why?
Well, I just feel like you only did the sold out pay per view where it was an all NWO themed pay per view one time. So if it was easy and successful, it felt like you would have continued that. I just look at that and think, hey, they tried it. Maybe it didn't work. I know when there was the NWO takeover of Nitro, it was a major channel changer. You lost a lot of viewers, and maybe that was a production thing. I just don't feel like I ever saw the NWO version of the program really work as a quarter hour or an hour. Obviously, them taking over WCW and the infighting does. But as far as the presentation of it being an NWO show, you guys tried it, but there was no consistency there. So it made me think somebody somewhere thought it was tough to book. Am I off
No,
base?
no, and no. I mean, no. Nobody sat down and said, "Wow, we tried these two things and it's too hard to book, so let's not do it." And I know that's not what you said, but that's kind of the implication. We never got to the point where we could have where NWO could have its own show. But think about it this way: I'm the NWO. I'm the mouthpiece for the NWO. Now I've got my own show, and Ric Flair or Sting or some figurehead, high profile figurehead, has the WCW show. So I'm going to book people who aren't necessarily part of the official NWO crew necessarily. It's like they own the company, but they're not going to wrestle on every match. They would just control who wrestled on the NWO show and who didn't. Some of those people may end up in the NWO. Some people may be trying to get into the NWO. I don't know how we would have figured it out on a match by match basis, but there would have been a lot of talent that would have been a part of an NWO roster who weren't necessarily part of the NWO and weren't necessarily heels.
We got to do a few more questions here. We keep getting some really good ones. Keep those questions coming. We are live here at 83weeks.com with Eric Bischoff. Major wants to know AEW is in a bad state right now. Once fans leave a promotion, is it even possible to get them back? I don't think I've ever seen it happen before.
We've talked about this on 83 Weeks in the past. A very well-respected producer, friend of mine, network television, told me once you lose your audience, it's significantly harder to get them back. Once they've made up their minds, they vote with their remote, and once they go, not worth my time, it takes so much more to get them to sample you again than it did to get them to sample you the first time. Is it impossible? No. Is it extremely difficult? Yes. Have I seen anything to indicate that there's anybody with a brain cell and a job in AEW that knows how to do it? Absolutely not. So I don't know what the future is. You know, Tony's been, listening to Dave Meltzer and the internet wrestling brain trust for so long. I don't think he has the ability to see outside of it. And if he doesn't, it's just going to continue to deteriorate. This time next year, they'll be lucky to break 400,000 viewers.
Kevin Eggman says, why didn't the UK get the WCW pay-per-views? That's a good question, Eric. Do you remember why that didn't happen?
Not specifically for UK, but pay-per-view was a lot tougher. I really wanted to get pay-per-view in Japan. But until fiber optic came along and things like that, pay-per-view was still dish signals. And for example, in Tokyo, everything is vertical. So antennas were tough, and there were issues with them. So Japan didn't have a big pay-per-view market. I'm not sure from a hardware perspective or from an infrastructure is a better way to say it, perspective that pay-per-view was that sophisticated back in the 90s. It may have been, but without TV, and we did have some TV in the UK, but it just wasn't viable for us.
Ask a Bum has a fun question for you here. Would you have tried MMA if it existed in your karate days? And who do you think are the 5 toughest wrestlers in a shoot fight, at least in your opinion? So 5 of the toughest pro wrestlers in a shoot fight. But first, would you have tried MMA if it was around back in your day?
Of course. I mean, I wrestled through high school and I didn't wrestle for a college team, but while I was in college, I wrestled AAU, which was the Amateur Athletic Union. I wrestled Greco and freestyle. Trained in Golden Gloves boxing for a bit, not a long time, maybe 8 months, and then worked pretty hard to get my black belt in martial arts. So karate specifically. So it kind of would have been natural because I liked contact. I didn't love contact, but I liked contact, and it would have been a natural move for me. What was the other? Oh, Five Toughest Wrestlers.
Five Toughest.
You know, who I saw legend stuff, but I think it'd be pretty, you know, I'd put Ming at the top of the list. Brock Lesnar would be right there. Maybe he'd be at the top. Ming would be back up. I'm not sure which way I'd go on that one. Brad Riggins in his prime. Definitely Brad Riggins in his prime. Kurt Angle. And who after that? I'd probably have to go old school. Terry Gordy in his prime. Not later on in life.
Oh, wow. Terry Gordy, that's a fun one. Mad Dad has a nice compliment for you, Eric. He says, thank you both for everything you do. I hope you guys realize what you do for us as we drive, work, and grind. Two people who use their powers for good. Well, man, I appreciate you saying that. We appreciate you jumping on and joining us live here. The next big major wrestling event that's going to be happening, Eric, is coming up 2 weeks from the night. It's the first Saturday night's main event that'll be live on NBC and on Peacock. They're back on NBC. What say you? Should we go live again after Saturday night's main event, Eric?
I love doing this. I love doing this. Yeah, this is fun.
Well, make your plans, boys and girls. Join us live right after Saturday night's main event, immediately following. It's going down December 14th at 83weeks.com. That's 83weeks.com. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, and make plans to join us here on Saturday, December 14th, right after Saturday night's main event. I'm pumped for that, Eric.
I am as well. How long has it been since we've seen a Saturday night's main event? A couple decades?
It's been a while. Well, I don't think it's been a couple decades. I mean, I do remember them having them in like 08, I think. So it's been quite a while. They've had a few specials here and there, but I grew up on it as a kid, and I love that they're leaning into the old theme song. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cody Rhodes is going to be in your main event against Kevin Owens, and they've certainly got enough talent to spread it out. I can't wait to see what's next in this Roman Reigns Bloodline storyline, and as it relates to Paul Heyman and certainly CM Punk. With the Royal Rumble right around the corner, Eric, a lot of people are going to start speculating who's coming back, who's returning. Do you think that becomes a real triangle, if you will, with Brock Lesnar? Is that a possibility at Survivor Series or Royal Rumble, rather?
God, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, it would be cool, right? It would be unexpected. It'd be cool as hell. It'd be a little edgy because you're going to have people reacting to it, you know, but I wrote the book, Controversy Creates Cash. It's not always a bad thing. I don't know, man. It's just one of the things that makes it so much fun to watch. Where are they going? What are they going to do next?
Well, what we're going to do next is we're going to make plans to join you live. We're going to be live next week when Eric gets back from having a little fun with NXT and MLW. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back. Mark your calendars down now. Immediately following Saturday night's main event. Turn on that notifications bell, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon right here at 83weeks.com.